Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yurii. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections, and my guest is Ed Giansante, a community professional with decades of practical experience from driving millions in savings at Zynga to scaling engagement and support for over 500 million Dropbox users. And beyond that, creating his own platform, Edublin, reaching millions, who turns communities into real business outcomes by trusting guts, backing it up with data, and telling compelling stories. So welcome, Ed.
Thank you. I love the intro. Thank you for that.
Super happy to talk to you. You definitely know how it works. You definitely know how to connect community goals with business goals. It looks like, out of your experience and definitely out of all the stuff that you are sharing online and everywhere. And I know that you've been just a speaker on CMX Summit. So I believe that you definitely have some beans to spill. So let's just
I survived.
Yes, it's the best thing. If you survive CMX Summit, you're definitely community professional. So let's go for the first question. So tell me, what is one community activity that you enjoy the most and why?
I love curated dinners, the smaller community motions we have. Dinners because it's the opportunity we have to sit down with like 8 or 10 people that are all they all have something to share. They always have something that you can learn from. But more than everything, you sit down with 3 hours, you build true relationships with them. It's not about QR code exchange and LinkedIn connections, or like this shallow chit chat. We really deep dive into conversations, and then obviously, with respect to everyone's, culture, but you drink some wine and you keep the conversation going. You get a lot of good intel, a lot of good insights. I got a lot of the off-record intel that you can, only get in situations like this. So this is my favorite community activity today.
But it also doesn't sound like very scalable thing.
It doesn't need to be.
Okay. Why? Everyone is talking about numbers. Everyone talking about growth. Everyone is talking about bringing more members and doing more things.
Yeah.
So how does this dinners are specifically moving the business forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe I'll give you like an example, then you tell me. So imagine that we have a vending machine, and then this vending machine, you put $1 inside this vending machine, or €1 if you're in Europe, and then it will spit €60 back to you, or $60 back to you. So every time you put €1, you get €60 or $60 back. How much money would you put into that machine?
It's a question. It depends on my goals, but like logic tells me like the more you put, the more you get back.
The more you put, the more you get back. Imagine it's like literally this number is not fictitious. So for the community dinners that I host, we generated over $3 million in pipeline with around $55,000 spent. So that's essentially every $1 generating $60 ROI. So it's small, not scalable, but we can get millions of dollars out of it. So why not keep doing it?
Yeah, how does it work?
Well, you essentially find the right people. You make sure that the right people is there. You get the right information and you warm them up. Because it's at the end of the day, if you think about a business community, it's not about belonging. It's not about, serendipity. These are beautiful words, but they don't make any sense in the business world. And the goal is, how do we either save money? I think as you were introing me, you mentioned like my work previously at Zynga and Dropbox. It was a lot more about saving millions of dollars because of the scale of the company, which was about billions and millions of dollars and millions of users. What is the flip side of that is how to make millions and millions of dollars. So if you find the right motion to generate millions and millions of dollars, why not keep doing that? And it's not about scale of it's not about quantity or volume of community members, but how much value do you get out of that one single person or that 10 group in a dinner or in a brunch or whatever is the situation, that you make them feel it's highly curated, right? So again, another silly example would be if the airplane had only business class, but the business class was always filled up, there would be a lot of money. But it's hard to fill up 300 seats, 400 seats of VIP or business class. I don't think it's even sustainable for an airline. But then if they make that curated group, they will feel special. They'll feel it's meaningful. They'll feel it's meant for them because it's like small, curated. there's always this like fear of like, hey, I'm out of this. How do I get in? So that's the same sensation, the same feeling, but with the right people in the room.
What's in it for them? I mean, like, it's always the number one question, because if people are going to those dinners, they definitely get something back. Of course, it's good to sit with people, it's good to drink some wine, but it's like, has to be something more than that.
So who are your biggest community heroes today? Who are people that you like love to follow and learn a lot from?
Yeah. Okay. There are so many people. Okay. So Josh Zerko, of course, Chris Catania, Carrie Melissa Jones some times ago. I'm not listening to her so much again right now. Katie Reiser,
Okay.
Pat
So
Cooney.
imagine
Yeah.
you got Josh, Kerry, you got, I don't know, Ben Lang, got Richard Millington, all of this. They are in the room and they're like, hey, we're having a dinner. Do you want to come? Would you go?
Yeah, sure.
Plus, it's free. You don't have to pay for the dinner. We'll pay for the dinner. Would you go?
Yeah, of course. It's free. Yeah.
Free
Everyone
dinner
likes free
with
stuff.
right, free dinner with amazing people. Why would you not go? So that's what's in it for them. If I tell someone else like, hey, there's some other people that you will really get a lot of value from, why would you not want to go for that? So it's a very clear win because everyone is getting something out of it.
What does the business? So you told me that you have this vending machine that generates out of $1, $60. How does it work exactly?
So let me maybe explain first how the typical business sales cycle work. If you work with account executives, you'll probably learn that they're not the people who find the leads to sell to. So salespeople in sales companies or SaaS companies, AI companies, doesn't matter the business, they're not the ones directly selling. They need someone to find them the leads. So what do these people to find the leads are called? They're the SDRs, they're sales development or BDRs, whatever it is, or business development somehow. So what they'll do is they'll either go to conferences or they will buy sponsorships in newsletters or in podcasts, whatever it is, or they will create ads and then they'll have to somehow generate leads, right? That's the core of it. And so imagine again, I'll give you an example like Lenny's podcast because it's big, or maybe Yuri's podcast. Let's use Yuri's podcast. So maybe a brand wants to talk to other community managers. Let's say, I don't know, Hire Logic. I don't even know if they exist still, but let's say they still exist and they want to hire you. They want to pay you to get the leads, right? So what do you do is maybe spend 10,000 euro to be in the one podcast slot. And maybe what you're going to do is like, you're going to spend 1 minute saying, hey, all, by the way, if you want to use a community platform, go check it out, hirelogic.com, whatever. And that's it, 1 minute. Even if you had like hundreds of thousands of people listening to you, it's 1 minute. And the hope they have is that out of the hundreds of thousands of people who listen, someone will be like, oh yeah, hold on. Let me get my keyboard, type in hirelogic.com, and then, okay, I see the website, let me buy. And then that's so far from reality, right? I mean, some people still do that. I don't know why, but it's so far from reality. Where imagine if I go and say, hey, I'm going to host a dinner for you, for Josh, for Carrie, and everyone. We're going to all come in here, have a great time. We're going to get like amazing food. We're going to share like this amazing meal. We're going to have like wine, some great dessert. We're going to have a lot of conversations. We're going to bring some topics around community building challenges. Oh, by the way, someone from Higher Logic is always going to be there. And then you're going to be also talking a little bit about like their challenges and how they, partner with community builders. And then as this unfolds and you're like 3 hours talking to them, you get a lot of information. You build a really strong relationship because they're not trying to sell. You're really talking about challenges community managers would have. And then you do that again. And then you do that again and again. And then once a month, you have like a dinner where we're always going to have this dinner. We're going to discuss topics. What's going to happen next? You'll be like, you know what? I should think about a platform. And maybe this guy from Higher Logic could be a great option for me. And then I'll go talk to them. That's when that lead or is becoming like a warm lead or a sales qualified lead, an SQL, and then that's passed to a salesperson. Then the salesperson will be like, oh, sure, yeah, oh, great that you joined our dinner, great that you had all of this and this and that. I see that you had a challenge with A, B, C, D that you mentioned in our previous dinners because this was a discussion you had, right? So again, you're gathering 3 hours of conversation with someone just talking like openly about all their challenges. It's not a 1 minute thing. So it's 3 hours. And then as they're doing that and it's explaining their challenge, it'd be like, okay, sure, here's how I can help. Here's how our company can help. And then you go and offer that solution. And from there, it's obviously the job of the salesperson to be convincing and be great and make sure that the solution that's proposed covers the problems that they're presenting. But because they have a lot of intel, it's much easier to get that. Then if you were to compare with like a BDR who picks up the phone for like a 15-minute cold call, you have 15 minutes trying to get this most out of what they can. They're doing their best, but it's just like not, you can't compete with a 3 hour sitting with wine and food where they're openly talking about like it's like almost it's a spontaneous. You're not trying to get them to speak things that they shouldn't speak. They even say things they shouldn't say, but that's the best. That's the beauty of it. So once they do that and have this conversation, and then the salesperson closed that sale, it'll be like, oh, great, that sales, that the attribution of sales came from this dinner, and therefore the money that we generated as business comes from that demand gen, that the lead that was generated from this community event. So that's how you make attribution. That's how you make sure that it generates ROI. That is how you know you're getting the right motion and all of that. So it sounds simpler than what it is in practical terms, because I'm talking about a business we all understand, and we're talking about community and community platforms. But then obviously for the work I do now, I'm working at Persona, and what we offer is identity verification. So I don't talk to community friends, that I know. I talk to chief compliance officers, general counsels. I talk to heads of onboarding or head of fraud, head of risk, chief risk officers. They're not the most fun to talk to, some are, but it's not a conversation I can just go like, sure, how is compliance going for you? I can't, I don't know what to say. So I have to be smart about it, so I have to make sure that I have the role, which every community role should be, of like being the servant. So I'm the waiter for them. I'm serving them. I'm not there to offer opinions myself. I'm not there to be the expert in the room. Quite the opposite. I'm playing the real role of a community person, of like just facilitating the whole thing and let them do it. Let them do the things they're good at. I'm just helping. And again, just like to not extend too much, but I'll bring another example that's maybe for people who are not in the B2B world. Imagine that we're going to host like a basketball game, and I'm going to invite like a lot of superstars and maybe some people who are still thinking about, getting started with, basketball player. They're like not sure about what to play. But then every player that I bring are using Nike shoes, and then they're amazing players. And then what's happened to you? Like, oh my God, I want to be a player like these guys. What shoes are they wearing? Oh, they're wearing Nike shoes. So that's maybe the good start. If I buy Nike shoes, I'll be closer to them. There's always this like intrinsic relationship that you build with like others. They're like, because they do that, maybe I'm going to be closer to them. Because they use certain tools, I'm probably going to be closer to them. Because they have certain garments or whatever style, that's how I get closer to them. Everyone had that, and somehow, in podcasts, in video making, like everyone followed Casey Neistat to be at the YouTube. If they thought that this was the way, if I have a sunglass and then the camera pointing at me, that's how I'm going to become a vlogger. And that's happening everywhere. People follow like trends. They follow what others that are ahead of them are doing because they think this is the way. Maybe it is, but I don't know. It's more like maybe human than anything else, but it works. So if you help them navigate through that, it kind of helps you get to the closest.
When you were talking about Nike shoes, you reminded me a song of Macklemore, and he was also saying like that bubble will make me gonna fly. And I can get that people are thinking in this way because they want some piece of identity, somehow to identify with those people that they are talking to, that they might be wanting to talk to. And what I'm hearing, am I hearing it correctly, that what you are doing in community is basically like generating leads for sales?
Yeah, I have to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So
it's like community qualify leads. And what happens next? I mean, like when you are creating leads, why I'm asking, because many community people, they are afraid of sale. They believe that they will build relationships as community experts, and then salespeople will come and ruin everything, and then they sell. So how to make it work in the right way?
Yeah. I'll step back a little bit, and because this is a great point. A lot of I've been in community for 18 years, so I'm old. And it was not my first job, so I'm even older than what you think, if you're doing the maths. So the reason why I survived, and actually it's really interesting, because a lot of people, tools, there's been a lot of discussion that you're probably following on LinkedIn about like survival, like tools that are dying, that are no longer relevant, or people who became irrelevant because they didn't progress. And a lot of really good people who are like, they had a really strong name around community, they're struggling now. You're like, yo, can you help? If you find like any gig, if you find any job, please tag me or please share, because I'm struggling. And you're like, oh my God, you got like 15 years experience and you're struggling. Why? And I think there's a lot of like the survival is some of them, they're fantastic community people, but they're not fantastic business community managers. The difference is they're really good at the social side of things, of like the belonging, the serendipity, the community everywhere, whatever name you want to give it. They're great at this. Great moderators, but they're not great at tying that back to the business. They're always missing that. And they're always like, I need more resources. I need more this. I need more that. And they're never showing the dollars. They're not showing the dollars. They're like, there's no other way a business executive talks other than dollars. It doesn't matter the company you go to. You're going to always have one thing that matters the most. It's how much money are you either making the company or saving the company. It's all about the dollar. How companies are measured, like valuation. Is valuation measured on engagement? It's not. Is valuation of the company measured on, I don't know, how many employees they have? It's not. It's all about money. How much money, how much more they are valued, how much money are they bringing into the table, or how much money potentially they can bring to the table. And that's essentially like dollar signs. The reason I'm saying that is because if I was able to always tie that to dollars, I was able to survive because my role became important for the business. So by survival, you learn a few things. You learn how to make things work. You know that, as much as you want to make it like a fun, engaging, and whatever, sending the tools, whatever, fun space, it's always back to how does that tie to my business? And because I was able to do that, I survived that. So again, to your point, like essentially getting to the point where like, how, why, what is that like? Is community then all about money? The end goal, yes. The means to it is not necessarily all about money. Actually, quite the opposite. It's forbidden for salespeople to join my meetings, my dinners, all of that. They cannot. And I don't pass the lead directly to them unless I feel it's right to do so, because I don't want them to put these people in a mailing list or start sending in like weird newsletters or weird cold call messages, because I know it's going to destroy my reputation and destroy my credibility. But if people, what we call raise their hand, quite literally, but like digitally, like, hey, Ed, was great meeting you. By the way, this persona thing, I think we need it. Can we talk? I'm like, okay, that's someone like actively asking me for that. I'll pass that on, gladly pass that on to sales, but I'm not going to do that before their consent.
So are they asking you to connect you with salesperson?
Yeah. Again, let me go back into the example of our real life, because if I talk about compliance and all that's going to be very hard to have people relate to it. But let's go back. I don't know. What sport do you play? Do you play any sports, or you like have any hobbies yourself?
Yeah, soccer, of course, like soccer. Everyone. Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Because I'm a big soccer player. I hate basketball, but I was like, maybe basketball is going to be a big, but okay, let's do soccer then. I love it more. So why do you think there are sponsors in jerseys or in any sports or any soccer activity, like either sponsoring their boots or sponsoring their jerseys or sponsoring like the stadiums? Why do you think there is such thing?
I mean, you've already talked a little bit of like Nike shoes. It's something that you can get you closer to players, of course. And of course, like millions and billions of people are seeing that and they're just programming their mind. And at some point when they go and they want to buy some chips, like, oh, Lay's, I saw that. Or, oh, Coca-Cola, I will drink that. I saw that. Or, oh, Qatar Airlines, I will fly them because I saw them. So yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. And then to your point, like, do people raise their hand and ask for it? If you go to a stadium and then Messi is playing and then he scores a lot of goals and he's wearing I think he's wearing Adidas, not Nike, but he's wearing his Adidas shoes. What the kids will do to their parents, they're like, Dad, please buy me this Adidas. They'll raise their hand, right? It happens everywhere. So just imagine just a different audience thinking about a different problem. My audience is like a compliance person thinking about reduction in fraud or ensuring they're regulated, that they're compliant. Is my tool solves that. So they're like, hey, we need to be compliant and we're expanding to this other country. Can your tool help us be compliant in this other country? Like, yeah, sure. So that's a raised hand. It's different from like, I want to buy this shoes because I want to score goals, but it's the same principle of a need that's very obvious for that audience. And then by surfacing that, like they'll raise their hands.
How do you facilitate that conversation during dinner in a way that, first of all, they get value? And as you've said, you are not an expert to answer all the questions. So basically you make them talk to themselves. But how do you facilitate this conversation in that way that afterwards they will come to you? Oh, by the way, we would like to work with Persona.
Yeah. Easiest way to explain, and do you know the Jeffersonian style, how to host? No, Jeffersonian is probably very American, actually. So this comes from back in the White House when big decisions were being made by the senior executives within like the government. They would have this like closed doors dinners and have like single conversations where, it's one person talks, everyone listens, no distractions, no nothing off record. So thinking about this today, it's still a term today if you search like Jeffersonian style. But that's how we host usually. You have like you don't check your phone. We don't like if you're I'm not going to say like, get away because you're checking your phone, kick you out of I'm not going to do that because they're all grown ups. But we make it so that they will feel bad if they do that, be like, hey, let's have this conversation. It's a single conversation. We have topics to discuss, and then people will talk, others will listen. And then I'll make sure that as a facilitator, everyone feels that they had a time to talk and be listened to. There's always going to be people talking more than others. That's no problem. And then certain dinners, they like the shotgun style or shotgun rule, which is essentially like you can collect insights. It's fair, but we're not going to reveal our identities. For example, I bring in 3 different banks. They're kind of indirectly, or there's a competing element to that. So obviously they'll be like, I can openly talk about some challenges I have, but I don't want you to tell that I was this person from this bank that had this challenge, because then the other person from the other bank will be like, oh, come on. So it's a little bit more like around the challenge itself, not about the person or the company revealing that challenge. So you have to be a facilitator. I guess it happens everywhere. Back to the community CMX thing. All the talks were off record. Why? Because the main problem is that because they're on record, people tend to not reveal so much of what's going on. Similar to what we're talking about here. There's just so much I can go to and talk to you, because then it's going to be on record. It's literally on record. We recorded up. So I have to go to a guardrail and say, like, this is how much I can tell you. If you ask me, but how much do you charge? I can't tell you. Or which client did you get to? I can't tell you. Oh, how much? There's like always going to be a guardrail because we're on record. If we were chatting in a bar and off record, I'll be talking much more. And that's the beauty of hosting this, right? So again, if you think about this is what I do, I host these off-record situations where they can talk about that because I'm not going to reveal. Reason why people are like, how did you host 86 events last year, which is how much events, the amount of events I hosted, but you just posted like 10 of them, because the other 70 plus were off record. I can't talk about them. But that doesn't matter, because what matters is like internally, we know we're generating business, we're generating pipeline. So again, this is the how. You have facilitations, but then you make sure that they feel like they can trust that you're doing that. You're not going to be posting online, oh my God, this person said this, or even revealing things that you shouldn't be revealing.
How do you choose the topics for those dinners?
It's about the audience that's going to be there. So I bring an example that's on record. This one was on record. Last 2024, Trump announced the Genius Act around traditional banks being able to now offer stable coins. They could issue stable coins. Very specific, banks can now become crypto companies. That's maybe like the simple way of putting it. They can offer stable coins. So that's essentially how you transact, like make this transaction of like non-regular traditional currency, like not dollars or any of that. So you could use like kind of cryptocurrencies. That made so that banks were really interested in talking to crypto companies or issuers of stable coins, because they had the expertise technically how to make that happen. And then this smaller companies, like the crypto companies or wallet issuers or blockchain, people who are building on top of blockchain using as infrastructure, or the compliance companies around that, all of those, they're like, how do I get into a bank? Because that's where the money is, how do I partner? So my dinner was essentially getting traditional banks and a lot of leaders in this crypto companies to connect and talk about the Genius Act. How does that impact the business that they're in? And they had this conversation. It was amazing. We had like whiskey, because it was like a whiskey distillery. So they had whiskey tour and then whiskey tasting, and then they got happy, and the conversations were like really interesting after a certain point. But again, the facilitation, the topic was based on something that was super top of mind for them. It made sense, right? What's next? Maybe what we're going to talk about is like how community can implement AI to help them scale. Very, very top of mind topic for all of us. And then especially if you talk to community folks that are working in bigger companies, because that's probably like something they're getting pressured on to start implementing. And they're like, I can't figure it out. I'm not technical, or like, I don't have the time, or whatever. Like they always have a challenge and why it's challenging for them. So you can bring them into a room, maybe bring like 2 or 3 experts from AI companies to talk to them. It's not about sales. You're literally going to have them open up about how to get that going, right? So again, facilitation happens. This is, I think, the magic of a good community manager is being able to connect the right people with the right, connecting the right people at the right space and having this conversation to happen.
It feels like, you have to know when to speak up and when to shut up, and let's just people do the talking. And I feel like sometimes it's a very big challenge for many community builders because they always want to jump and help with everything. And I even remember that it was always a question, and still a question, like how much time has to go through since someone asked a question, because community managers are always like, oh, I know this answer, ask me, I want to answer. But it doesn't really work that way, because when you answer all the questions, like, why should people even care? Because they know that you will answer. It's like community of one, and yeah, it doesn't really work that way. And you told about tying back community to dollars, like community impact to dollars. That's exactly, as you've said, what kept you alive in this community industry. And like, to your point, I totally see the same thing. I see a lot of great professionals being laid off, and then they're trying to find a job, and always like, why did it happen? Because business didn't see the value. Why business didn't see the value? Because maybe it was not a very clear connection. So I'm curious, how do you do? So for example, when you, let's imagine, start working with a community, what will you do to tie community impact to to dollars?
It's a simpler said than done. But I think the example from Persona is very obvious because I came from. Sorry, I'm shaking the whole camera here because I was like moving and I touched the table. When I worked for Dropbox, Dropbox had an unfair advantage. Which was the unfair advantage? Everyone knew Dropbox. It was easy for me to be like, hey, by the way, I work at Dropbox and I'm hosting this thing, or I'm working at Dropbox and I'm building this video. Like, I'm in. Maybe like, let's bring it to today's biggest company. So I work at Anthropic or I work at OpenAI, and I'm thinking about hosting a dinner. You'd be like, I'm down. It doesn't matter what you're going to talk about. You're OpenAI or you're Anthropic, whatever, or you're SpaceX. You're a sexy company. I'm interested in you. I know you. That's rare because it's a fraction of the businesses are like that. The other 80 to 90% of them are unknown. So when I joined Persona, no one knew what Persona was. I didn't know what Persona was. I was like, I'm here because I trust the team, because I know them, because we worked together in the past. And I really like the atmosphere, the culture, and everything they're building. It feels like it's something I'm really connected to, even more so now. And when I joined, I was like, okay, I don't know. Anyone doesn't know me. I don't know anyone because I'm in a new country, because I had just moved to the US. So what can I do to build awareness? Again, if you're not known, what's the first thing you want to be doing is be known. So you want to be known. Start. Again, that's like, I don't want to explain what community managers should be doing. That's kind of like repeating myself or preaching to the choir. So they should know. Okay, you want to be known. That's one. You want to build awareness. Second, once you have awareness, you want to maybe help be, help it, like, find if there's maybe some intentionality, or if there's maybe some sort of like interest around your brand, because now they know you. So who out of people who now know me would potentially be interested in me as a business, would potentially buy from me? So that's the second challenge. Every company should know that. If you don't know, you ask your CEO, ask your founder, ask your head of sales, whatever. Like they will know the answer, and they should be able to give you that answer if you don't know the answer. Figure out, okay, what's the thing? Who buys from me? What do they buy from me? Why do they buy from me? What's the problem they're trying to solve that they would need to buy from me? So now you know that. So you know who the person, or who the roles are, or who the personas are, with no pun intended to my company, the company I'm working at. But you know that at a new company, you just started to generate a little bit of awareness, what you're interested in, who's the potentially person interested in me. And you're like, now I'm going to start to drive more awareness to these people. Doesn't matter if they're smaller, because it's essentially like a funnel, right? It's going to get smaller. It's fine, because it's a smaller group of people who I know are interested in me. And then we start to, I think to your point, you do the opposite of what extroverts do. You don't start talking a lot and, trying to answer every single question. You literally become there a sponge. Try and collect as much insights, and like make sure you create environments and situations for that to happen. It can be a meetup, it can be a dinner, it can be a call, it can be whatever. Like you choose, but you do the way you feel more comfortable with. I like to do more in person than on call, so I try and like literally go in. Like if they want to hop up for a coffee, I'll be like, hey, I'll pay for your coffee, or pay for lunch, or let's do maybe some brunch. Like I'll go to a place and I'll pay everyone's coffee and then do that. And to be very honest, a lot of times I paid it out of pocket because I had to learn myself first. And I was like, I don't know if the business is interested in this, but I am interested in this because that's part of like how I secure my job. So I need to know who's buying for me. So I spent time like talking to a lot of people. And then from there, it becomes easier because you start to like funnel. You're like, okay, there seems to be a pattern in all these topics that they talk about. Everyone I'm talking to have like these are 2 or 3 key problems that they always share. Doesn't matter how far they go, there's always 2 or 3 very common challenges. Can I solve this? You're like, okay, yes, my product can solve this. Do I know good ways in how I can propose that? Like maybe I can share a use case. Maybe I can share a customer testimonial. I can invite maybe that customer to talk about it. Maybe I can have someone from my product team talk about it. Maybe I can learn and speak to them about it. There are ways in how you can do it. Depends on how complex your product is. When I worked for Dropbox or Wix, it wasn't so challenging for me to explain from my own end because I kind of knew it. But for Persona, it's harder, right? There's just so much I know about compliance, regulation, and I don't know, FINRA or like database, that I can explain. So like, I need someone to help me. So you partner with your teams to do that. So then you start to get that going. So I don't think it's challenging. But again, go back to, not to extend so much on your question, think of a funnel, a community funnel of like awareness. If you're not known, become known, then become known to people that matter to you, and then start to solve for them. And that's it.
You were talking about learning from those people. And talking to people and learning, I would say there are two different things, because you can be talking with them about the weather, or you can be talking with them about like dogs or about like family or whatever. And then you can talk about specifically what you need to make your business grow, to ensure that community deliver business value. So I'm curious, from your experience, do you have specific topics? Okay, let's do it that way. What are 3 questions that you always ask those people that can help you to move forward with the business goal?
Have you read this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah, I just finished. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's like Dale Carnegie or something.
Yeah.
This is probably the best answer I can give you, is knowing how to make the other person feel that they matter, right? Again, we could have spent this hour together talking about the weather, talking about, I don't know, life in Europe. But you're asking me questions, right? Asking me maybe the right questions for you that matter to you to help you get the most out of this time. I don't think it's different. You want to make sure you prep for that and you ask the right questions, so you don't talk about the weather.
Yeah. But how do you prepare? Why I'm asking? Because once again, a lot of community people, they are very empathetical. They can make you feel important, but in a human way, not in a business way. And that's exactly one of the main key problems that community people have. They do not connect the human part with business part. So how do you prepare to specifically talk about business?
I'm going to bring another really weird example, but this just came to mind because, again, I'm a big fan of the band. So there's a band called Slipknot, very heavy. They had everything to go wrong. They had everything to not be rich and famous, because it's not a type of music that attracts most people compared to like the most popular stuff. They're not Dua Lipa. They're not, anything interesting like that. They're not good looking guys. They're like bad looking guys, actually, masks on. But they make a lot of money, and they have a lot of businesses tied to what they do. There's the whole mysticism around the masks, not seeing who they were, and then brand sponsorships. They have like this Slipknot, I think, boat tour or like yacht tour. Like they get like a full boat full of fans. They host like their own events that are, I don't know if it's like this Slipknot conference. I don't know. There's like a concert that they're little headliners. They were able to tie businesses to something artistic, right? So they were tying businesses to what initially was more artistic. They're like, we want to express ourselves and not be tied to like how we look. And it's more about like the music, whatever, the message. I don't know, something around that. But they got business out of it. And other bands didn't, and they failed. And they're struggling a lot. And they're having to do like a lot of revivals to try and survive, and they're still not surviving. Or they had a one-hit wonder and then they died on that. No different community managers. A lot of us care about, like, again, the emotional side of things, socially connecting to people and being fun and friends and all of that, and hugging and having and caring a lot for people. But that's fine, you can do that. But then what's your other side of it? How is your business hat tying all of these skills that you have into business, right? If you don't want to tie to business, like, you know what, I don't care about money, I don't care about, it's bad, I don't want to do the capitalism. Fine, maybe you're not in the right country, but other than that, maybe you could even work for an NGO. Maybe you can work for a church. You can work for it could do something else. Even though, like, to be honest, I actually serve the church. There's always, as much as you want to serve and help the others, the church also needs money. NGOs also need to raise funds so they survive. How can they help other people if they're struggling themselves? So it doesn't matter the business you're in, to be honest. In the world we live, where things are charged for and they're bills to pay, you have to find ways to tie back to money. So I'm sorry, if people are not doing that, they're going to struggle.
It's something that recently came to my mind because I've been doing sales for, I don't know, over 10 years already, even more. And I was always this person who, oh no, I don't like sales. I don't like selling stuff to people and things. And then I was like, why do I say that? Like, if you have a great product that solves someone's challenges and helps someone to move forward, you are not actually like, yes, you're selling, you're doing business, and it's totally good, but you're bringing a huge value and you're bringing value to both sides because without money, you can't survive, you can't move forward. So if you are just thinking that money is bad, yeah, exactly. Even as you said, even in NGOs, they need money to survive because otherwise, yeah, we just need food. We don't live just from air or something like that. And yeah, I totally. And you also mentioned the sales team once again. So you have these leads, you put them into sales, and then magic happens. What are two more teams that you are usually working with when building a community?
So sales, product marketing, legal. I think I work with every single team. It depends on where we are. So sales, very obvious because it's kind of like part of that motion of warming up a lead and then passing to sales when they raise their hands. Marketing, because it's all about demand generation and they usually do that in different capacities. So you kind of want to be aligned to them. You want to avoid overlap. You work with post sales. So in a lot of companies, they call it like customer success or whatever title, which is essentially existing customers that you want to maybe bring in to a dinner so they become your allies, your advocates. So you have to work with them as well. You work with legal if you have to draft contracts, for deals you're making. You work with product if there are things that are very much about I think you're gonna. I did mention this briefly, but in a lot of these talks, it wasn't to talk about. I didn't know what to say. Like when we were meeting with folks, talk about crypto or to talk about different ways of verifying businesses in different countries and regulations. I would have to bring someone from product to understand how does our product currently solves or did not solve yet that problem, but they need to learn so they can implement that in-house. So a lot of the times we're more like, we want to just learn. It's not even passing to sales yet because we're not ready to sell that. It's passing to product so they know what to build and then we can sell in the future. So again, it will depend on where you are. I think Figma did a great job doing this when they just launched. They got a lot of people sitting down with products folks from product to share their challenges. They're like, hey, we work on Sketch today or Adobe XD, and then this is what's good and this is what's bad. And then Figma was like, okay, let's build a solution out of that. It was purely on the product side of things. And they actually got a lot of buy-in. And that's how they got a lot of really heads of design, heads of product teams, product design teams to onboard on Figma. And when they were out in the market, they had like huge traction and they grew a lot. And maybe they're going to die now because, they're like other tools. Go back to my point, right? On you want to make sure that you're always constantly not only learning, but tying that into the right team so that you can keep growing on that.
You gave me a very good example of working with Dropbox versus Persona. When Dropbox, people already know what it is, and then Persona is like something that nobody knows about. And what is how to get leadership on board and invested into community and what you're doing when community is a long-term ROI?
It's long-term and it's not. I think, it's long-term if you think about, okay, it may take a year, but it may, depending on the business you're in, depending on the moment that your company is, it's very fast. Like if you're working for an AI company today, your ROI will come in like a week. Honestly, if you know what to do, in a week you can prove ROI. To be very honest, it's very, very fast because that's moving so fast and moving at a high scale that it's almost like there's so many fishes in this ocean that whatever net you throw, you're going to get some fish. Maybe it's not the fish you want, but you're going to get some fish. So I think depending on the company, it's super fast. But if you got hired, someone is already bought in. Otherwise you'd be hired. But if you got hired by a company, someone there may care about it, and maybe someone approved this. So it could be like, if it's a startup, maybe the founder signed up on it. If it's a large team, maybe the marketing person, whoever, like department, they bought into that, right? So they already have some sort of value that they see in it. It's up to you to okay, I don't know, but during the interview process, you can ask, you're looking for this person. What's the goal here? What are you looking for? Why are you hiring for this role? Some people are scared to ask questions in interviews. I don't know why. That's so silly because an interview is literally for both, right? They're interviewing you and you're interviewing them to say, does it make sense? Can I help them? I had a lot of companies that interviewed me and I interviewed them like, I don't think I can help because what you're looking for is not what I can do. And you just say no. But because sometimes, the challenge of like, hey, I'm struggling or I need to get this job, comes ahead. You're like, you feel scared to ask questions and you hop in and you don't know who to prove that value to, or you don't know even what to do. You just feel scared and you're like, you don't want to challenge things. And then 6 months come in, your probation is gone and you don't pass and you're gone again, back to the market looking for a job. So I guess maybe spend time learning about the company, asking the right questions, because then when you get in, you know who to talk to and what ROI is that you have to prove. But again, it's always going to be money related, but like, who do you have to show money to? What's currently, how they measure that? What's the way that they track investments? Who's the buyer and whatnot?
And so I feel like it's also about the expectations, because sometimes people say community, but they mean audience. And then you are trying to build a relationship, and what they actually need, they need some, I don't know, Instagram page with like 10,000 subscribers, and you are trying to build community and personal relation. Who cares? Of course, it's like different wording. So you need to know what you are working for. And, Ed, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final question, what is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
Oh, someone who's already working in a company and they're struggling to find ROI. I guess they should talk to their team. I mean, they should use their skills of being community people and then talking to people internally. Meet people who are making money for the company, sales, marketing. Ask folks, what matters to us here, like what's going on. How do you know? Marketing should know. Okay, what are the assets or what are the outlets we use today that works for us, and then ask sales. What's a really good lead for you? What would be like a perfect lead for you? What does the attribute look like? Break it down. Work with them. If they don't have the time, you literally ping them on Slack. Send them like an email. Send them like a form. Whatever. Like, make it simple for them, but get that information. Because if you don't know, I honestly, it's funny, right? Because a lot of community people, they're like, oh, we're so siloed. You're like, dude, you're a community person. How are you siloed? How can you not build a community internally first before you try and go out in the wild? Build your allies internally first. Build your reputation inside. Build your credibility, so then you can go out in the wild and know you're going to be protected, because it's like going to war alone. It's not going to get you like anywhere. It literally needs to find the right connections to help you out. So yeah, I'd say people need to use their skills internally first and learn who to talk to, how to get the most out of it.
It's super important that you mentioned that, because people sometimes forget, and when they're building external community, they are forgetting about internal community, but you are building both. And exactly as you've said, you have to start internally, because otherwise, if you don't have this internal community, you will struggle a lot. And it's the hardest part. And to keep the conversation going, name 2 people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
I think the one, actually, when I saw you had this question, I was like, oh my God, there's so many people, but I don't want to go to the obvious. I think one, Sampar, he is the founder of The Hustle that got sold to HubSpot, and now he hosts My First Million. He built Hampton, which is a strong community of founders. I think there's like a threshold of like, you have to generate at least $3 million to hop into that. So that's like a better version, I would say, of like Chief or YPO and all of those like selective communities. He's doing it right, and I think he's a great community builder, as well as like an entrepreneur. There's I'm thinking like Ben Lang is great. Ben is actually amazing. He started the Notion community. I think he's now at Cursor, doing very similar things in the sense of like building ambassadors and whatnot. So I'd say these 2 folks are great.
Last but not least, what is one question about community ROI that I should have asked you but didn't?
You're right. You asked a lot of questions. I think you asked the right questions. I feel maybe I don't know if there's an actual question you should have asked. It's more like sometimes people overthink and over plan and just don't do it. So I know that like, hey, you need to get awareness done. You need to do this, and then people are like, okay, but what if I do this? And then they start to plan. What if I do? What if? And they don't do anything. Like, you're stuck in like, you're just like overthinking and you're getting obesity over education. You're learning so much, but you're not putting anything in practice. I think the best way to learn how to ride a bike is not to read a book about how to ride a bike. I don't think it's different for community. It's just like, there's just so many books on like how to build community that will work. The best thing is like go off and do it, you know?
Yeah, I read many community books, and without practice, it's just words. So if you are reading them, yes, you kind of like very educated, kind of like bookworm educated, but you are not streetwise. And then you are becoming streetwise exactly when you're going out and building, and especially doing mistakes, doing something wrong, fucking things up, because otherwise, like, how can you ever learn if you are not making any mistakes, if you are not trying? So as Pink said, you got to get up and try and try and try. And Ed, thank you so much for bringing so much energy into this conversation, and a special thank you for speaking about how community collaborate with sales, because it's something that people are like really, really afraid of. And I met so many community builders who are talking, oh my God, I protect community from salespeople. I like do everything not to work together. I'm like, how the hell can you not work together if at the end of the day, sales are bringing cash and money into the company that is paying you? And no matter how hard you try, at the end of the day, even if you're creating this community qualified leads or how marketing qualified, whatever you call them, at the end of the day, there will be salespeople who will sell to them, and there will be customer success who will be working with them. And you just must work with those people. And yeah, thank you so much for bringing it up and for sharing your amazing wisdom.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the time.
And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.